How are you? Now?
Sisters, brothers.
How are you? How are you? Nice to see you again, okay?
You're here today to have yet another monthly rally demanding the end of the U.S. blockade, economic embargo against Cuba. U.S. hands off Cuba, end the embargo now. Yeah. Let's do a quick chant. U.S. hands off Cuba, end the embargo now. 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 U.S. hands off Cuba, end the embargo now.
U.S. hands off Cuba.
Cuba sí, bloqueo no. 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 Sisters and brothers, we are having this event in front of this mural because this mural for the past 25 years has been a symbol of the historic solidarity between the peoples of Cuba and the peoples of Puerto Rico. The sovereign right for Cuba to maintain its socialist process, the sovereign right of Puerto Rican people to determine their destiny, including the fight for independence, as represented by Juan Albizu Campos, the father of the independence movement, and Che Guevara, a central leader of the Cuban Revolution. However, over the past year, just over the past year, 24 years, no problem, this mural has received much support from the community. Artists who would come do music videos in front of the mural, no problem. But for the past year, a layer of ultra-rightist individuals have come here and vandalized it 6 times. The first vandalism, a person openly boasted about the vandalism. He actually came from Miami and vandalized it, got on a plane and went back. But then 5 other times, people more subtly, covertly, repeatedly vandalized. But after each attempt, after each vandalism, members of the community and supporters get together, make repairs. The last repair was done about maybe 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, and a day after, or 2 days after, the mural was vandalized yet again. So we're here today to demand that artistic expression be respected. There are many people in this neighborhood who have different points of view on Che, different points of view on the Cuban Revolution, but they also demand that regardless of one's point of view on any issue, the democratic right of artistic expression, free expression through art, be respected, free of violence and intimidation. And we think that has to be our starting point. And we think with that, we can win broad numbers of people to support the continuance of this mural. And it is for that reason we're having this rally here. And thank you all for being here. And at this time, I would like to introduce Ike Nahum of Cuba C.
And the embargo now.
Cuba sí, bloqueo no. Thank you.
Cuba sí.
And thank everybody for being here. We're going to have a rally. Jason laid out why we're here. We're trying to do 2 things today. We're trying to have our monthly, the continuity of our monthly activities against the blockade. And we wanted to do it also here because we wanted to identify with this very important struggle. Now, I just wanted to speak on one thing, and then I'm going to start calling on folks, and we'll have a rally, and everybody can say a couple things. Jason informed me that some of these, that there was one right-wing organization that has sent out a notice and to say, oh, some people have attacked this mural and Che Guevara, the terrorists, they called him Che Guevara here. And they wanted to say, we weren't against Albizu Campos. we were not against, we are not against the Puerto Rican struggle. But in fact, why don't you put up Jose Marti instead of Che? This is what they said. Now I want to just say one thing. This is really nauseating, and we're not going to let them politically try to do that. First of all, I don't have, and I'm sure most of us here don't have a problem defending Che Guevara. He is a tremendous, not only symbol, but a historical example of internationalism, of revolutionary principles, and of heroism, and of the most deepest moral and personal integrity. And at the same time, so that's not, we defend and we identify with the example of Che Guevara. But at the same time, we are not going to allow these people to try to identify with Jose Marti. Jose Marti represents the continuity with Fidel and the July 26th movement of the Cuban struggle for independence and sovereignty. And also with the same continuity of struggle that's represented by Don Pedro Albizu Campos. So I would just wanted to make that point. We are here to defend the legacy of Che and of the Puerto Rican and Cuban struggles for independence and sovereignty. And on that note, I'd like to ask Camilo Matos from the Puerto Rican Nationalist Party and also part of the Restoration Committee for the mural to say a few words, particularly educate us a little bit about Don Pedro. Just speak in, you don't have to
speak in. Hello, how you doing, everybody? Yeah, we're here to defend the mural again. This mural has been here for 20 years. I don't know how much Jason already covered on that, but this mural has never been touched. All this time, it has never been touched. Not until this recent campaign in the last year that they started messing with it. And they're not from this community, and they have no right to dictate to us about this mural. This mural represents Albizu Campos and Che Guevara. Albizu Campos, through the legacy of Jose Marti and Betances, continue the struggle for Puerto Rico's independence. These flags were made by the Revolutionary Committee for Cuba and Puerto Rico because we were struggling together. That's why those flags are there. And these are the next people, the next generation that continue that struggle. Che representing the Cuban Revolution, including Fidel and all the great martyrs, and Albizu being the Puerto Rican struggle, who continued, who brought back the legacy of Betances, who was a contemporary of Jose Marti, who is the father of the Puerto Rican nation, who organized the Grito de Lares. He organized the armed struggle, and both Jose Marti and Betances warned people about the United States and their intentions. Jose Marti used the phrase in the belly of the beast, and Betances warned the Puerto Ricans that wanted to compromise during that revolutionary time. He warned them that the United States' plan was to expand because it wasn't something that just happened by accident, like some historical books will try to make it seem. The United States have been planning to expand and take the Caribbean with the Monroe Doctrine and stuff like that. And the Monroe Doctrine is still in effect. They see us as a backyard. They think Puerto Rico is a play place where the military can go bomb on Vieques and Culebras for decades and then leave it with radiation poisoning, where the population has the highest concentration of cancer in all of Puerto Rico and highest in most of the United States. If you compare it to the United States, the United States still haven't given up Guantanamo Bay. If those Cubans that dictate, put Jose Marti, what have you done to fight against?
Excuse me, Jose Marti representa a Cuba. Él no es cubano y él era un asesino.
Sí.
Sí.
He fought for Puerto Rico, for Cuba's independence. He fought for Cuba's independence.
Representa representa a Cuba porque él es cubano. Él es un asesino. El Che es un asesino.
Okay,
El Che es un asesino y mató mucha gente en Cuba. Está bueno ya. Está bueno ya. El Che es un asesino. El Che es un asesino. El Che es un asesino. El Che es un asesino.
Move away.
You don't fight against the blockade. You don't fight against the blockade. You don't represent Cuba because you don't fight against the blockade. The blockade that is strangling people.
Talking to Mike. Talking to Mike.
Cuba City blockade or no? Cuba City blockade or no? Cuba City blockade or no?
Let's go back.
Blockade or no?
Cuba sí bloqueo no. Cuba sí bloqueo no. Cuba sí bloqueo no.
Cuba City blockade or no? Cuba City Gusana no?
Yeah.
If you love Cuba so much, fight against the blockade. If you love Cuba so much, fight to get Guantanamo Bay back. Que viva Cuba libre. No Fidel.
Señora, ¿por qué tú vas a pelear a Orlando Paso o José Pasada Cariles?
Orlando Bush and the Gusano Cubans killed mad Cubans committing terrorism in Cuba.
Thank you, everybody. I guess she felt that she was going to wait for the right time to try to Cuba sí bloqueo no. Cuba sí bloqueo no. Cuba sí bloqueo no. Okay, let's continue in our rally, folks. Let's gather towards over here. Keep a little perimeter. Okay, I would like to ask now, in the spirit of Puerto Rico and Cuba being two birds of the wings of the same bird, to ask Brother Ismael from Pro Libertad. Brother Ismael, can you say a few words for Pro Libertad? Thank you.
I just want to say a couple of things. The young woman that mentioned Jose Marti. If you read the writings of Jose Marti, he stated that Cuba should be free from the United States. What does that tell you?
Sorry.
It's okay, brother. It's okay, brother. Teach, brother. Preach, preach. Another thing I would also say is that Jose Marti also said, in the spirit of Yara and Lares, we are one. And where did he learn that from? From this sister, Lola Rodriguez Tortillo, who wrote this great poem, Cuba Puerto Rico, Wings of Two Birds. I want to also mention one very important note. A political prisoner named Ana Belén Montes will be released. Ana Belén Montes has been released. According to Libertad, she should be coming home hopefully by the new year.
She has a release date. That's what you mean.
Exactly.
She has a release date.
She has a release date. That is the work that Pro Libertad is doing, but that is the work that the people are doing. The reason why you see this is because of people. Let's not forget that in the turn of the century, the Puerto Rican community that was here was very active in every social political movement out there. Now you see these storefronts right here that you see here? Those used to be tabaquero shops, the tobacco workers. People like Bernardo Vega, Jesus Colon, Julio de Burgos, they were all active in the struggle for Cuba, as well as Puerto Rico. The work that Pro Libertad has done, let's not forget, the Cuban Five. They don't mention the Cuban Five. The Cuban Five didn't kill nobody. Yet this woman here, when I just asked her about Orlando Pasha, Luis Pasada Carinas, she says she's never heard of them. If she says she's never heard of them, then there's a problem. The problem is ignorance. This mule promotes education. This mule promotes peace. It's not graffiti, as you can see. You see graffiti all over the place. You saw them in the subways. But they didn't promote an issue. This is promoting a positive. There's no negatives here. And that is the work of Pro Libertad, which we have done. We help free the political prisoners. Let's not forget, Oscar Lopez Rivera was released in year 2. That was the work of us. And let's not forget that. Ana Belén Montes, same thing. It means a lot. So let's keep the work going. ¡Que viva Cuba Libre!
Can I ask somebody from Casa de las Americas?
Oh, somebody here for Casa.
Oh, there's you. Come on, Jaime. Say a couple of words. This is the oldest Cuban-American group supporting the Cuban Revolution in the world. So here we go. Thank you, Jaime Mendieta.
Okay, thank you, Ike, and thank everybody for being here. I tell you, this is a pleasure and an honor to be here to help defend the mural. This is the third time I've been here, and I think, you know, from the looks of this looks like the least damage I've seen, which makes me think it's probably that crazy lady, that hater that was here just a little while ago, probably lives in the neighborhood and throws stuff on it. And hopefully that's the extent of the attacks. And of course, all this represents for me and for the Cuban people here, the real Cuban people, the attacks on the Cuban community, on the Cuban nation, on the Cuban people, with you know, depriving them of the basic necessities of life, simply to get them to overthrow the government the United States don't like. This is another manipulation of a general population. It's what the United States has done since it was created, I imagine. And the Cuban people have been going through hell, especially the last couple of years since Trump started the new wave of sanctions, the 240-something sanctions, which have been carried on by Biden. And this is, you know, an incredible violation of the human rights of the Cuban people. And the United States is really, really a monstrous country to carry out something like this against a population that has nothing to do with the damage that was done to the Cuban, to the American companies that were taken over by the revolution. Most of the people in Cuba were not born yet, had nothing to do with it, and knew nothing of it, and yet they're the ones suffering for 6 decades now. So. Again, I want to thank everybody for being here. I also want to express my gratitude to the Puerto Rican community for putting up this beautiful mural. What was it, 30 or 40 years ago, and being here defending it ever since. And that just shows our closeness, the two wings of the same bird. As it's called in English, dos alas, as it's called in Spanish. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Jaime. Listen, I want to apologize for the gender imbalance that we've had in the program so far, but hopefully we'll have different representatives and all of that. But anyway, thank you. I want to ask, there's a lot of political parties and organizations that have all sometimes that on other questions are on different sides and have a hard time working together, but around the Cuba work, we've been very blessed, I guess, to have a degree of unity that really is exemplary, that Cuba brings out. So I'm going to ask a number of representatives of different political parties that I see here to give a brief statements before we end the rally. Before I do that, I would like to ask Bill Sachs from the Venceremos Brigade to say a few words. They're one of the oldest solidarity organizations for the Cuban Revolution. Venceremos Brigade. Bill Sachs. Thank you, Bill.
Hi everyone, thanks for coming. We're all here. The Venceremos Brigade, as Ike said, is really the oldest organization that's been breaking the blockade, traveling to Cuba without licenses, breaking the blockade for over 50 years. We had our 50th anniversary brigade just a few years ago, and another brigade is scheduled to leave for Cuba on December the 26th. We have 80 people going to support the Cuban Revolution, to demand that Cuba be removed from the list of terrorist nations, and for the U.S. to get out of Guantanamo. In fact, we'll be in Guantanamo province to make those demands on the U.S. government. On behalf of the Venceremos Brigade, we're here in international solidarity to support the struggle of the Puerto Rican people for independence and the struggle of the Cuban people for sovereignty, independence, and socialism. And we demand an end to the defacement of this beautiful mural, which has been here for so long and represents the solidarity between the Cuban people and the Puerto Rican people, which has a long, long history, as you've heard. On that note, I just want to, urge everyone to continue the fight to end the blockade, to get Cuba off the terrorism list. I want to make one more point. Today is December 4th. It's the 53rd anniversary of the murder of Fred Hampton, a leader of the Illinois Black Panther Party. The Black Panthers were leaders in the struggle for black freedom in the 1960s and 70s, and we have to mark that day every year on December 4th. The Black Panthers were strong supporters of the Cuban Revolution, and Fidel was a supporter of the black freedom struggle in the U.S., including the Black Panther Party. And so, with that, we should all remember December 4th, Fred Hampton presente, Venceremos.
Thank you, Bill. And also wanted to ask if Brother Yamir Shabour, who just came back from Cuba, he's a Cuba C activist and a Venceremos Brigade activist. And Yamir was at the from what all the reports I hear, and I'm sure he's going to tell us this, at the U.S. and Cuba Youth Conference that took place November 24th to 27th in Havana, and Yamir was there representing all of us. At least the young ones.
Revolutionary greetings, comrades. It's a pleasure to be here. It's a pleasure to be in this rally today in defense of this historical mural of Albizu Campos and Che Guevara. I think this is like the 6th time already that they vandalized this, and I don't understand when they're gonna get it through their heads that we're not gonna stop defending this mural, because this mural means a lot to this community. Even for us that are not from this community, we understand like solidarity, international solidarity with the proletariat, and just to know what this mural represents for the Puerto Rican community, for the Cuban community, and for the folks of this community, which is a historic Young Lords community. So yeah, I had the pleasure of last week being in Cuba. I was there for a youth brigade, a meeting amongst youth in Cuba and youth in the US, and it was very lovely. I got to learn more about the Cuban Revolution through the lens of the Cuban youth, me understanding more about basically what the revolution has done for the youth, of how it sowed the seeds of revolution since their birth, but also the big price that they have had to pay due to this inhumane blockade that the U.S. has had on Cuba for over 60 years. And it was also very lovely to be in Cuba during what we don't call people's death, but transition of Fidel's 6th anniversary transition to the spiritual realm, to the ancestors. So yes, it's very important. I came back very inspired now more than ever to do what I could do to fight against this blockade, to get Cuba off of the terrorist list, and to get the U.S. out of Guantanamo. And many of these things that we do, like out here, solidarity, you know what I mean? getting together every month against the blockade, or also to defend this mural that represents the embracement of the Cuban Revolution and of Puerto Rican independence. It is very important that we come out because the Cuban people appreciate us. Just the way in Miami right now, that you have Puentes de Amor, that they're doing their monthly caravan against the blockade. Yes, yo soy Fidel. Viva Fidel, viva Che, viva Albizu Campos. And you know, we will stay here defending this mural, figuring out ways to make sure that the people who vandalized this get reprimanded for this. But we will not stop defending this mural because we understand that this is defending our people's self-determination, defending Puerto Rico's independence, and defending the Cuban Revolution. So with that said, I'm going to say, Cuba sí,
Bloqueo no.
Cuba sí,
Bloqueo no.
Cuba sí,
Bloqueo no.
Independencia para Puerto Rico, Independencia para Puerto Rico, Independencia
Para Puerto Rico.
Independencia
Para Puerto Rico.
¡Que viva Che Guevara!
¡Que viva!
¡Que viva Pedro Albizu Campos!
¡Viva!
¡Hasta la victoria siempre! ¡Patria o muerte!
¡Venceremos!
¡Patria o muerte!
¡Venceremos!
¡Patria o muerte!
¡Venceremos!
Thank you, Brother Yamir. Okay, so now I'm going to call on different organizations. Please try to keep your remarks to about a minute in solidarity. I'm going to start with Marty, who's right here from Socialist Action.
Okay. Thank you, Ike, and thank you, comrades. Ike reminded me to write things down, so I got a little ways since he said that. Okay? Thank you, comrades, for being here. I just want to alert you to some facts that are going on. The Biden administration is considering sending Haitian refugees to Guantanamo, where they could be lost in a black hole, as other prisoners have been tortured, deprived of their freedom, deprived of health care, and all of that has made Guantanamo synonymous with human rights violations. Biden has deported over 26,000 Haitians, violating their rights. Violating their rights to seek political asylum. Now, we've just seen the same president squash the union rights of railroad workers. The right to strike is a precious right. Without it, the labor movement has no real power. And we saw both parties shaking hands and signing on to this vicious anti-union measure. And we denounce it in Socialist Action. We say no, workers have the right to strike. One last thing. This coming Saturday, December 10th, to defend free speech in this country and learning about the crimes of imperialism, war crimes, and CIA dirty tricks, which Cuba has seen more than any, we are going to have a rally to free Julian Assange next Saturday at 48th Street and 2nd Avenue by the UK Consulate. 48th Street and 2nd Avenue, 1 o'clock. Latest thing, Roger Waters of Pink Floyd will be there speaking on as he's done many times. So thank you, comrades and friends. Down with the imperialist embargo. Thank you.
Thank you, Marty. Okay, we have some new folks here from a new group that's supporting our work, the Multinational Communist Party, Quell and Bacasa. So quick, try to...
So, we just had a right-winger here who
who got very upset at us and accused Che Guevara of doing all these things decades and decades and decades after Che Guevara left. And to me, my question is, what is she so afraid of? Che Guevara is not here. Fidel Castro is not here. Raul Castro is not here. I think what she's afraid of is what this mural represents. Because Fidel Castro said that the imperialists hate us with the hatred of a slave master who hates their escaped slave.
He was right.
And this mural is in a special place. Actually, this mural is in a dangerous place. Because this mural is filled with working class people of color. People of color who are ignored and forgotten and exploited. The kinds of people who were exploited and ignored and forgotten in the mountains of Sierra Maestra, right? And what happened? They were united. They became strong. They overthrew the imperialist puppet. So what happens if people look at this mural and they get inspired and they get united, right? The blockade can't strangle the Cuban Revolution, right? The NYPD cannot strangle the ambition for revolution that the people feel here. As Fred Hampton said, you can kill a revolutionary, but you can't kill a revolution. So we don't have to worry about these fascists when they come, because we will persevere. We will go on, we will win, we will unite, and we will fight. Thank you.
Sorry, all you guys just talking.
Hello? Okay. I wanted to spitball off of what Makasi said with those very powerful words and remind everyone that the main organ of the Cuban Revolution are the committees for the defense of the revolution. The whole of the Cuban people working together. And I'd like to draw parallels between what we're doing here and what people in the community are doing, and the unity and struggle, and make that parallel to the committees for the defense of the revolution, because that's how we went.
Thank you, Quell. Terry Evans, Socialist Workers Party.
Want to welcome the opportunity to speak out and to protest against this cowardly attack on the mural. That's what it is. It's a cowardly attack, to condemn it and to support all the efforts to reconstruct it and repaint it, no matter how many times that has to be done. This is not only an attack on free speech, freedom of assembly, freedom of expression. It's also an assault on the fight for freedom of the peoples of Puerto Rico against US colonial rule. It's an assault on Cuba's socialist revolution and the powerful example it sets to millions of working people in the United States, across the Americas and around the world. It's an assault on Cuba's principled defense of Puerto Rico and its freedom by Che Guevara and other leaders of Cuba's revolution. Protests like this and the meeting that was held recently at the People's Church in Harlem to protest the FBI's harassment of Cuba Solidarity activists, brigade members by the FBI throughout the summer. Meetings like this, protests like this, are crucial to defending rights and freedoms working people need as we organise to defend jobs, fight for better wages and working conditions. The US government uses its embargo of Cuba for the very same reasons to crush the working people in Cuba that Congress banned rail workers from striking for better conditions this week, for sick days, for less draconian attendance policies, for safer working conditions. Their fight is an important fight for the entire labour movement. The Socialist Workers' Party continues pledging to do whatever necessary to back that struggle, to demand an immediate end to the US government's financial, economic and trade embargo of Cuba, and doing the most important thing we can to solidarize with the struggle of the Cuban people for freedom and independence, building a movement in this country to overturn US capitalist rule.
Thank you, Terry. Thank you.
Viva Cuba!
Viva Cuba! Cuba sí, bloqueo no. Now I'd like to ask Brother Steve Milles from Socialist Unity Party to speak. Thank you, Steve.
Years ago, the great artist Diego Rivera, whose partner was Frida Kahlo, was commissioned to make a great mural in what would become Rockefeller Center.
That's right.
His mural was destroyed by Nelson Rockefeller, the future butcher of the Attica prisoners, who had 2 huge ranches in Venezuela, one of them 100,000 acres. What a great thing it is that Hugo Chavez chased the Rockefellers out along with Exxon. These criminals who defaced this mural, this piece of art, all of that reaction comes right from the top of capitalist society. They're in the path of the criminal Rockefeller family. Cuba sí, bloqueo no.
Cuba sí, bloqueo no. Cuba sí, bloqueo no.
Let me just fill in the story that Steve began. Rockefeller himself, because he owned the building that was named after him, commissioned the great revolutionary artists for his own reason. He tried to be like he was a hip guy and he was like modern art and stuff. And Diego Rivera produced a beautiful, beautiful mural. But it had a portrait of Lenin in it. It had a picture of Lenin in it in one corner. And that was more than Nelson Rockefeller could tolerate. So rather, when Diego Rivera refused to take Lenin off it, he destroyed the mural. And it's a wonderful story, but it's the same freedom of speech issue. This belongs to the community, not a private capitalist that could do that. And this community will defend this mural and will defend the image and the history and the example of Che Guevara and Don Albizu Campos. So, did I leave anybody out that would like to say any words? Anybody want to say anything? Thank you all for coming. We'll probably do a little vigil to keep our continuity going on Christmas Day, which is a Sunday. We'll get out the information on that. We got going into 2023, we're going to be doing a lot of stuff against the blockade, and we're counting on everybody to pitch in. It looks very good for us having a wonderful international Cuba conference, U.S.-Cuba Normalization Conference. We hope that we can have it at Fordham School of Law. That looks good, and we'll get that confirmed, and will be something that we can have a gathering of our entire international movement, not only physically, but also streamed internationally, and that we can all work together on that. Washington has never been more isolated in its policy. They got creamed at the United Nations, 185 to 2. They were embarrassed and humiliated at the Summit of the Americas. Their buddy Bolsonaro is no longer in power in Brazil. Their allies in the Colombian right wing are no longer in power in Colombia. The whole hemisphere, the whole world are united. That's right. But yet, that's the contradiction of this period. The U.S. policy is more isolated than ever, but the blockade continues. Day by day, suffocating, asphyxiating the Cuban people and trying to prevent its development and its prosperity with terrible effects. That's the contradiction of this period. And our responsibility as Cuba Solidarity activists is to exploit that isolation, to mobilize and to increase the pressure to force these people to do what they clearly do not want to do, but to make them pay such a high price for it politically that they can do it no longer. That's our job, and that's what we're committed to doing. Thank you everybody for coming, and we'll see you all on Christmas Day. Yes, Jason.
One quick thing, guys. We will be letting people know as to when the next repair process will happen. Anybody that wants to come by, help out with the repairs, please let me know, and we'll keep you posted regarding that. Thank you.
All right. Hey Camilo, we got some boxing gloves. Some really cool.
Vivan los barbudos, viva Cuba libre, viva el 26. Cuba sí, bloqueo no, Cuba sí, bloqueo no. That was a song the Orquesta Aragón used to sing. Orquesta Aragón, al estribillo, it was that. Que viva Fidel, que viva Cuba libre, que viva Fidel, viva Cuba libre, viva el 26.
Thank you guys. Okay, and I'm going to hear from you guys, right?